I'd like to maybe start from the beginning and say I was very young when I was born. I'm still trying to get out of that. I have had parents who nurtured and supported my passion, which fueled a life which has been accompanied, I guess, by tunes. And I've chosen the word tuned to sort of tie in together bits and pieces of my life and how I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've had. To start off with, Irish traditional music has been around for a long time. It formed the staple diet of entertainment for mostly rural people, coming in from a hard day's labour or toil, and with, I suppose, swollen hands, calluses and cuts, and then to pick up a fiddle or a flute, or maybe if they're lucky enough to have pipes, and to play incredible music, beautifully melodic tunes. And the people that created these tunes, I'm sure within these tunes that the treasures of what they experienced with the land and the culture and at the time are within those tunes. So these tunes have not just become little ditty melodies, little dainty melodies, which are very nice, but something far deeper. So much so that they've touched me at a time when I was growing up. I was very lucky to have some great teachers. And one particular teacher, Vincent Broderick, who taught me flute later on, he composed many tunes, but he was from Loughrea, County Galway, and moved to Dublin. And he always missed Loughrea, County Galway. It was as if actually he had emigrated to some foreign land. He missed it that much. But he wrote lots of tunes explaining and describing his life as a child. And within the tunes, he put in little characteristics to highlight those little special moments. Tunes such as the Coachman's Whip, or the Fox and the Prowl, or even the Cock Step in the Dung Heap, to name but a few. So I've had many, many great stories, and they've all been accompanied by tunes, as I said. One that comes to mind, my mother's hometown in Glenamaddy, northeast County Galway. I was out rambling around with my brother, Eamon, and we were lucky enough have been brought up in a diet of scéalaíocht from the Fiannacht, Fionn McCool, and great Irish legends. So we saw in the distance a red hare, a very large red hare, and we decided to follow it, to go on, not so much on the hunt. So we were reliving some of the old Fianna stories. So we followed it, and it would disappear and magically appear in another place. So an hour went by, and we found ourselves, we had traced across bogland and briar bushes and hedges, and we were quite a distance away from the house. So unfortunately, it was too late for us to get back to the house before it got dark. So luckily enough, we were very near my grandauntie's house, and we knocked on the door, and she welcomed us very kindly, and there was an open fire there, the turf crackling, and we were soaked, so we dried up, and she made the best chip butty sandwiches you could ever feast on. So we were in the lap of luxury, and didn't last too long. The door crashed open, and my large uncle-in-law came barreling in with a panicked face and looked at us and roared, "There you are!" Well, we soon found out when we got back to the house that the whole village was out looking in the bogs for us. And parents were very upset and that, but sure, we didn't think the less of it. So I'm going to play a tune called The Hare and the Heather, which we blamed for the occasion. And it's a tune I got from the wonderful playing of Matt Malloy. And he inspired me. When I listened to Matt's playing, he turned these tunes into something extraordinary, and he immersed me into this auditory landscape which has consumed me ever since. So I might start off with a very old tune called The Parting of Friends. It's a slow air, and go into maybe The Hunt for the Hare. Thank you very much. Well, that was a tune that we had to play for my grand auntie as an apology for the inconvenience. But my granduncle was in at the time, and he got very excited, and I suppose with tears in his eyes, he ran into the back parlour and came out with a bundle of sticks, hollowed out sticks with cobwebs and paint on it, and he said, "Here you go." He was a bit of a character. "These were my father's flutes, and I want you to have them." And his name was Jaw. And I suppose at that particular moment, something clicked, and I don't remember even walking home. I suppose, floated home. So that's when I started blowing, and that was my start of my journey playing the flute. And that journey led me to connect with wonderful friends, a journey that I shared with my brother and still do musically. I suppose by the time I reached university, I wanted to improve on maybe my technique on the flute, on traditional music. So I started studying classical music, and I ended up in Italy. I was studying in Lucca, just in between Pisa and Firenze, with Marzio Conti in the Boccherini Conservatoire. And by and large, I'd spend maybe a month or two working on a piece, maybe 4 or 5 hours a day. That was necessary. And then I would do the concert, and I'd have a very polite audience, very lovely audience. Most of them were a bit older than myself by maybe 50 years. Not now, though. And I get a lovely, polite round of applause and a polite encore. So from my encore, I take out the party piece, and I take out the traditional flute and play a tune. And I'd have a totally different reaction from it. They'd be up hugging me, wanting me to be brought home to their daughters and the like. So my teacher, being a very insightful man, he said, "Look, your real passion is with traditional Irish music." He said, "You could have a career playing in orchestras and a solo career, but," he said, "you really need to follow your passion." So a week later, I was gone back to Dublin, and there I met up with my friends again who I'd been playing all my life with, Dara and Shane Bracken, my brother. We started a band, and that was a great exploration into sounds, using these tunes, manipulating them. And one thing I found with these tunes, that they had great scope for creativity within them. They were open to your own interpretation, which I suppose is one of the key factors of how they survived. They've survived famine, occupation, you name it. Our history is, we're only really coming out of it. And these tunes survived all of that. So I ended up with a group called Danu, and we toured the world. We went and visited many cultures, and one thing about music, it doesn't have borders. It doesn't have restraints on it. You can communicate with really anyone in the world through music, and we were able to do so and enjoyed ourselves immensely, realized how big the world was and how innocent we really were. So we got to play some fantastic venues. We could be one night in a small little pub in the middle of the Midwest in America, and then find ourselves the next day in a big concert hall or in a big arena. So all we were doing was fueling our passion and playing those tunes as we come together and play them. So this led, for about 15 years or so, led me up to my visit to Cape Breton in Canada. And we were doing a big festival up there called the Celtic Colours. And it was there that I met my wife. And she hadn't even heard me play, which was great, because I suppose all through growing up, one of the main sort of inspirations of playing music was that when we were teenagers, we noticed that when we played music, we got lots of interest from the opposite sex, and it really kind of helped us develop our music. So this was all a great practice for the time I met my wife, and I ended up living in Cape Breton for about 7 or 8 years, living in the wilderness. I didn't have the city life to worry about. I had to deal with bears and eagles and moose and all that kind of thing. But by and large, in the community that I was based in, they had their traditional music. They had their tunes, which came from Scotland. And I was able to, because we share Scottish tunes with traditional music. They're intermixed. We were able to share this together, and I still kept playing tunes and was on tour with Danu. So little by little our family grew, and we eventually came back to Ireland. So I think I'm going to play a hornpipe called the Independence Hornpipe, which is named after a famous pirate ship that used to pillage and plunder the northern coast of Ireland and Scotland, and go into the Dublin Reel. Thank you very much. Well, to conclude my talk, and thank you very much, you're great listeners. I was out on the boat on my own in a kayak, hoping to catch that salmon of knowledge, and I still haven't caught it, but it was in that moment in where my wife comes from, St. Anne's Bay. It's a very, very peaceful place, very, very peaceful. And there, within the solitude of the moment, I heard a little kind of a whisper within inside me, and it just asked a simple question: what is music? And I've been on that journey ever since. That simple little question, and it's grown and grown and grown. And it's come to this stage in my life where it's branched off into all kind of crazy directions. It's all music based, but I realized the importance of music in everyone's life, and it's not so much that someone has to own and to use for their own advantage, but it's very much a gift that you give. And when it's received, it has incredible effects on people, be it therapeutical effects, inspirational effects. You all have your own version of that. But for my children, I wanted them to actually find this spark, find this passion in life. And how do you do that as a parent, as a father? It's very difficult. So I hope that maybe they can catch the salmon of knowledge, or maybe they will catch the red hare in their lives. But I know that there's a great expression in the Irish language called Mul na hoige agus tuchishid, which means all youth respond to praise. So if you could go away with that, I'd like to thank you very much for listening and being part of the TEDx Talks.